Yes, thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen. There is this one Jamaican lady that left her country. When she went to the US, she was stopped at the airport. What is that word that you call it? Yes, racial profiling. This Jamaican lady, she was racially profiled at Boston Airport. The security personnel, I know that is a standard procedure for any airport that you visit. The security personnel must, take time to look at your luggage, to see if there's something that you might be carrying. But you see, for her case, it's a complete different case. There's a way that someone can look at your luggage until now you start asking yourself, hi, you want to tell me this person is suspecting me this much? Ladies and gentlemen, the way this lady, the way she has described, the way this security personnel was, searching for her luggage.
Grad school, and I will remember it was August 16, 1998, bright-eyed, bushy-tailed, heading off to school. I didn't own any sweaters, so I stopped in New York first to buy my first sweater because Boston is a little colder than Jamaica. And the customs officer held back our bags as Jamaicans. My mother and I were traveling. If you're Jamaican, you're more than likely a drug dealer. That was the story then, that's the stereotype then, and it's still the stereotype now. So he was going through our bags looking very excited, like he knew he was going to find the cocaine and then he'd be able to retire and perhaps live in Jamaica for the rest of his life. In looking through my bag, of course, no cocaine was found, but he found my orientation booklet for MIT. I promise you, all the blood shifted from his face. He looked like he had seen a ghost. And he said, "You applied to MIT? You're going to go, it's really hard, Why didn't you apply to a state school in New York?" It wasn't a rhetorical question. It was as if DNA tests had been done, which confirmed that the black brain could not hold up to any standard that MIT would hold, and he wanted to save me the embarrassment before going off up to Boston.
Ladies and gentlemen, the Jamaican lady, she's not only speaking for Jamaicans, but she's speaking for the entire region of the Caribbean. She's speaking for the entire region. She's speaking for the entire black race. She's speaking for the entire African people. Because even in her own statements, I like the fact that she's proud of her own ancestry. I like the fact that she went ahead and visited Ghana, so that she can see where her roots began. Okay, that also means that she's speaking for the black people, and she has said that she's doing this for the entire black race, for the entire African people, for the entire Jamaican people. She has mentioned Jamaica. Jamaica is so proud to have one of their own as a rocket scientist, one of their own that qualified at MIT. The security person was very shocked. He wanted to confirm again, are you sure? Are you sure that you are qualified at MIT? Are you sure? Okay. Okay. The guy was shocked. Even Americans themselves. It's not easy. It's not easy for Americans to qualify at MIT, because MIT is not just any other college. It is not just any other campus or university. This is one of the best universities in the world. And it's very hard, extremely hard to qualify at this MIT. It's only for the best of the best. Yeah. So you see, Jamaicans are qualifying in every field. In every field, Jamaicans are going, they are qualifying. Even in the education sector, they are qualifying. Ladies and gentlemen, I can imagine the ordeal. I can imagine how this Jamaican lady was, treated while at the airport by the security personnel. Probably the security personnel was letting other people pass. But when it came to this Jamaican lady, she was told to open her bags. Said, you come from Jamaica. Open your bags. Open your bags. I want to see what you're hiding in that bag. Can you open it? Remove everything. Are you hiding drugs in that bag? Let me see. What is this? These are drug test? No. Those are my documents. Which documents? I'm a rocket scientist. I study at MIT. Rocket scientist? You study where? MIT. You study how to be a cartoon in MIT? No, I study rocket science. I'm a rocket scientist. What do you mean by rocket scientist? You make toys for rockets? No, I'm a rocket scientist, an engineer. ladies and gentlemen. That might be the experience, because probably this person does not trust that someone can come from Jamaica and become a rocket scientist. Okay, so when the lady probably handed her over the documents, and this security personnel confirmed that the documents were real, maybe she was scared and assured, oh, you said you're from Jamaica, MIT. Oh, you may pass. You're a rocket scientist, ladies and gentlemen. Huh? They did not believe that Jamaica can have a rocket scientist. Do you know how hard it is? She was raised in a very tough environment, in a very tough, unforgiving environment. But even in such circumstances, she was still able to come out successful. She was still able to come out as a rocket scientist, ladies and gentlemen. That's amazing. That's amazing.
And as I was growing up, I always wanted to be an astronaut. It was through my veins, it was all I could think about, and my parents made me feel it was absolutely possible. Bless them. It reminds me of inspirational stories I hear about people who are disabled, whose parents never told them they were disabled, whose parents never told them they wouldn't be able to do X or Y or Z because of whatever it was they were facing. What ends up happening in those situations? They do everything we do. They drive, they cut tomatoes with their toes, they do whatever needs to happen for them to accomplish their goals.
You see, I like the fact that she acknowledged her parents, because she could not be where she is if her parents did not play a role. Sometimes the environment that we live in also shapes us in a way that we may not see. Her parents encouraged her and told her, you can become, or you will become, an aerospace engineer. You will become a rocket scientist. And she's a female, meaning that she's not only coming from a minority community, but she's also a female. Seeing a female excelling in engineering is not an everyday thing. Engineering is known for men, but she is a Jamaican, ladies and gentlemen. That's one thing that people forget. She is a Jamaican. Nothing is too big for Jamaican people, ladies and gentlemen. But the fact that she grew up in an encouraging environment, her parents encouraged her to become the best version of herself, is something to be appreciated in. Imagine living in an environment where you are not encouraged. Imagine living in an environment where people keep telling you, you cannot amount to anything. You cannot go past beyond Muhomero farmer. You cannot go beyond Mbuta farmer. You will become a Mbuta farmer or a fish farmer or a Muhomero farmer. There is nothing. You cannot amount to anything. Ladies and gentlemen, imagine growing in such an environment. Imagine growing in a discouraging environment where people keep telling you over and over and over again, you cannot do it. You will start believing in those words, and those words will come to pass. The power of the words are very strong, ladies and gentlemen. Don't joke around with the power of the words. The power of the words are very, very, very strong. And her parents know this very well. So their words came to pass. You will become a rocket scientist. And indeed, she became a rocket scientist. She even gave us a good example of those handicapped children. Their parents did not tell them, hey, you are a handicapped children. You are a handicapped child. You cannot make it. You are a disabled child. You cannot make it. No. They made sure that their own children do not know that they're handicapped. And that's how they became successful. Have you seen situations, or have you seen scenarios where these guys with handicap or disabled people, they are doing things that even able-bodied people, a full-grown man who has eaten a full jack chicken, a full roaster, cannot do, but this handicapped person can do? It all comes down to the power of words, to the words. You are a result of what you think every day. What you believe is what you become. These handicapped people that became successful, probably they grew up in a very encouraging environment, where people spoke powers and blessings over them. Powers. Words have powers. Words have powers. Now they have grown up becoming successful, ladies and gentlemen. She has given us a good case study. Huh?
And so, given that my parents made me feel this was absolutely possible, as I grew, I continued to grasp and hold on to this desire. My parents, whenever they heard about astronauts, would tell me about it.
Yes, and of course, someone might ask, why don't you let the video play? Okay, we want to hear what this lady has to say, but you see, YouTube has some serious rules when it comes to reacting and making commentary, ladies and gentlemen. But again, I like the fact that she's reinforcing the statement that her parents played a key role in her success. Believing in the power of words. Her parents encouraged her and told her, hey, you can still do it. You can the achievement that she has made, it's because of her own parents. Her own parents kept on encouraging her and telling her, no matter what, you're going to become an aerospace engineer. But again, another thing that I also caught up in what she said, after this statement, there's also a Jamaican who also applied at MIT and was successful. This also gave her the notion that indeed, if my fellow Jamaican can do it, I can also do it, ladies and gentlemen. And again, if you've noticed throughout her statement, she has been speaking for the minority in the communities, or for the minority in the world. She's a female. The fact that she's a female, she's speaking for all the females around the world. The fact that she's a rocket scientist, that she's a female, that means she's speaking for the all ladies around the world. Secondly, she's also speaking for the handicapped community. Thirdly, she's also a Jamaican. She's a black race. You see, that's why her case is very interesting. That's why her case is very encouraging.
Father's grandfather was an enslaved African. My grandfather was a pastor, and my grandmother was a seamstress. On my mother's side, my grandfather picked up bottles for a living and would sell it to supermarkets or anybody that would accept the bottles. And that was his means of income as a single father to raise my mother and her 3 brothers. The income you would earn from that would be way beyond a minimum wage. So for me, it's a miracle that he was able to do what he did. And at about mid-teenage years, my mother moved with my grandmother, and she sold fruits in Jamaica's very rough downtown district.
From the way she has explained, nothing was handed to her on a silver platter. One thing that I loved about her own parents, they believed in their own daughter, and they knew that education is the only thing that will come to save her. They worked with all their heart, with all their sweat and with all their blood. From the grandparents selling bottles and working very hard, from her own parents, as a teenager going to the market, the grandparents also going to the market, working very hard to make sure that she stays in school, because they knew, even though they did not have so much, even though maybe they themselves they did not go to school, but they knew deep down that education is the key to life. Education is something that is going to save their own child. And indeed, she has become a rocket scientist. She has given a good name to Jamaica. She has, she's speaking a lot of, encouraging words to millions and millions of children out there. She has made a lot of people proud, not just her parents, ladies and gentlemen. Just shows, never give up on anyone. It doesn't matter what circumstances they might be in. Look at the environment that she grew up in. Very, very tough environment. And trust me, even maybe someone who has grown up in the US, that's why I'm telling her case is very special, that despite the fact that she grew up in a very tough environment, in a very struggling environment, she still qualified at MIT. Imagine the kind of, you have to be very smart, you have to be very strong-minded to grow up in an environment of, in an environment of fight to survive. And at the same time, you also qualify at MIT. You have to be, you are a superhuman, ladies and gentlemen. That's why I'm saying someone in the US and is in the MIT, cannot be compared with this lady, because that person in the US who grew up in the US, probably this person had everything. Everything was handed down, was handed to them. They in a first world country, better roads, equipments, books. But for her, can we say they are the same? No, they are not the same, because the Jamaican lady, she's fighting a lot of things. She's fighting prejudice. She was also fighting, struggle, but at the same time, she's still qualified. Huh?
So those are the shoulders upon which I stood and still stand. And their objective in their time was to ensure that my parents and their siblings survived.
At the beginning of the statement, I love the idea that she gave acknowledgement to the African ancestry. I like how she was very interested. She was very interested with knowing the history of African ancestry, to an extent that she even traveled to Ghana to see the experiences, how these people suffered throughout the history. She's so much, inclined towards the African people. That's one thing that really, amazed me about her. She's proud of her own origin. She's proud where she came from. Even though despite her level of achievement, she did not shy away from visiting her own ancestors' land, in Ghana, and learning about the history and learning about the African people. So in a way, she's also the success that she has made is also representing the African people, ladies and gentlemen. She will go down in the history of the African people as a black woman with African ancestry that became a rocket scientist and went all the way to MIT.
My parents, whenever they heard about astronauts, would tell me about it, and MIT kept on coming up. And I thought to myself, oh my gosh, this is excellent. One of my personal traits is that I feel nothing is worth doing if it's not done well. And so MIT was coming up as the world's #1 engineering university. And I said, okay, that's exactly where I want to go. The only thing is, MIT accepts 2.3% of non-North American citizens who apply. And there was an unwritten rule back in 1997 when I applied that only one person per year gets into MIT from Jamaica. No pressure, right?
She was trained at MIT, the best college in the world, the best universities in the world as far as science is concerned. Do you know how hard it is to qualify at MIT? MIT is so hard even to Americans themselves. But for her case, she's a Jamaican. And not only that, she's a trained rocket scientist. Do you know how hard it is to become a rocket scientist? That course alone is very difficult. One of the most difficult courses in the entire world is rocket science, ladies and gentlemen. I'm sure wherever she is, she has made Jamaica very, very proud. That you can come from any part of the world. As long as you believe in yourself, then you can do it, ladies and gentlemen. I'm sure she's an inspiration to a lot of Jamaican girls and teens, in the school. Despite the circumstances that she came from, she still made it out. Imagine how strong-minded she has to be to come from a very tough environment and still succeed as a rocket scientist. And even so at Boston Airport, she was still stereotyped. They said, I know, like just the way I've said, that's a standard procedure, but the way, that security personnel looked at her, the way she was trying to find something faulty within her luggages was very suspicious, ladies and gentlemen. I'm sure she was really, really embarrassed at that moment. It is not very nice. I'm sure that was one of the most hardest experiences that she had to go through. Let me tell you, there's a lot of professionals from Jamaica. There's a lot of successful professionals from Jamaica who have never even tasted drugs in their entire life. Even alcohol, trust me. There's doctors from Jamaica. There's teachers from Jamaica. There is, successful social workers from Jamaica. There is, business owners, legit business owners from Jamaica. succeeding in both in Jamaica and the USA. There is real estate investors from Jamaica. There is politicians. There is athletes, very successful athletes from Jamaica. Jamaica has great musicians, great musicians, great poets. Look at even in the field of law, one of the best baristas come from Jamaica. That means lawyers, they come from Jamaica, ladies and gentlemen. Yeah, I've talked about politicians. Yes, there's a lot of computer scientists from Jamaica. yeah. If you check out, forget about the stereotype, forget about the bad media, forget about this bad media that has been going on for a very long time, because as you have seen, it's not doing justice to Jamaican people. Just because you have qualified and you go to Boston, just because you come from Jamaica, somebody starts suspecting you, somebody starts looking at your luggage. Are you carrying anything? That's not right. That's not right. Jamaica has wide range of professionals. Yes, there's a lot of baristas from Jamaica. There's a lot of doctors from Jamaica. There's a lot of teachers from Jamaica. There's a lot of social workers from Jamaica. There's a lot of successful, legit business owners from Jamaica. There's athletes, successful athletes from Jamaica. There's a lot of scientists from Jamaica. There's a lot of great politicians. There's a lot of great actors from Jamaica. For her case, she's a rocket scientist trained at MIT, ladies and gentlemen, one of the best colleges or universities in the world. Do you know how hard it is to go to MIT, ladies and gentlemen? Do you know how, MIT is not just any other university. MIT, qualifying to go to MIT is very difficult, even for Americans themselves. Now, for her case, she's a Jamaican, ladies and gentlemen. She's a Jamaican. Imagine coming from Jamaica. Imagine how smart you have to be to come from Jamaica and qualify at MIT. It's not easy. Additionally, she's a trained rocket scientist. Probably the security personnel, after finding out that this Jamaican lady, she's a rocket engineer, I'm sure she was shocked. She was really shocked. Oh, you're rocket engineer? Hey. Yeah? This is not any other. This is not a small person that you can just play around with, ladies and gentlemen. Yeah? Jamaicans are wonderful people. Look at them. They excel. They excel in the field that most Africans will consider difficult. Rocket scientists, even Americans themselves, consider rocket scientists as one of the hardest course, one of the hardest units in the entire world. But she's a Jamaican. She still handled it. Congratulations to that Jamaican lady, ladies and gentlemen. I'm sure she has made Jamaican proud, despite the fact that she's still, racially profiled. Yeah.